It's been said that a mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open. When we come up with a great idea and someone shoots it down out of sheer stubbornness, we naturally are filled with frustration. In these cases, we understand that stubbornness is persistence without intelligence, and those who are stubborn will never listen to reason. But we are unaware of how the same problem, stubbornness, afflicts our own lives and limits our creative powers. To solve problems, resolve conflict, and adapt to changing circumstances, we need to keep our minds flexible and open. If you want a good life, power, or success, you must develop this skill. When we are children, our minds are flexible. We are eager to learn and open to the influence of parents, friends, and teachers. Later, in adolescence, we are still open to influence, to friends or celebrities we admire, or we may become fascinated by the books of an author that change how we view the world. But just as the body stiffens with age, so does the mind. As we get older, we are more likely to be set in our ways, rigid in our thinking. We move from the powerlessness of a child to the self-importance of an adult, and as we do, our minds become gradually closed off to new ideas and influence. Keep in mind, this is not just for the crabby old man we find amusing. This is for everyone. 20-year-olds are often already becoming rigid in their thinking. As our thinking patterns become rigid, we lose the ability to adapt and change to new circumstances. And the old saying is true: adapt or die. Robert Greene has said that law number 48, assume formlessness, is the most important law of power. He explained that the ability to be flexible, to adapt, is critical not only to survival but success and happiness. As he says, people weighed down by a certain methods and inflexible ways of doing things cannot move fast, cannot sense or adapt to change. And as the Chinese proverb goes, the wise adapt themselves to circumstances, as water molds itself to the cup. Hundreds of years later, martial artist icon Bruce Lee echoed these thoughts like this: be like water making its way through cracks. Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object, and you shall find a way around or through it. If nothing within you stays rigid, outward things will disclose themselves. Empty your mind, be formless, shapeless, like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle and it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. If we are fixed in our ways with a rigid mindset, we cannot quickly adapt in a world that is always on the move. Power comes from the speed with which you can change. If we can quickly adapt to the new events around us, we can be unstoppable. The ideal state of mind is to retain the flexibility of the child, along with the reasoning powers of the adult. This mind remains open to the influence of others, interested only in finding the truth of the matter. We use strategies to soften the resistance of others to our influence and persuasion. We must also do the same to ourselves, employing strategies to soften our own mental patterns that have become rigid. We can begin this process by adopting the philosophy of Socrates, who said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Socrates examined and re-examined his own ideas over and over again until he became aware of their inadequacies. He saw the limits of his own thoughts and how they were distorted by his emotions. He realized that conventional wisdom is often ill-conceived. People do not make the effort to think through their ideas. So Socrates was careful to keep his mind open, assuming the vulnerable position of a child, always asking questions. Try this mental flexibility exercise. Focus on one of your strongly held beliefs. Now imagine someone you respect telling you you're wrong. Seriously ask yourself, why do I hold that belief? Why might others have come to a different conclusion? Have you ever been confident of something and found out later you were wrong? Consider this. We like to make fun of the superstitious people of the Middle Ages, but realize that people 500 years in the future will be laughing the same way at many of our ideas. Despite advances in science, our knowledge is still limited. Ideas once thought true are constantly being disproven by cutting-edge research. Our ideas were programmed down into us by the prejudices of our parents, our culture, and the times we live in. We need to have a degree of humility in regard to our knowledge. The aim is to remain flexible and playful with your ideas and opinions, seeing them as toys or building blocks. Some you will use and keep, others you will knock down and get rid of. They are not set in stone forever. While it's important to keep an open mind, we don't want to rely too much on other people's ideas. To adapt well to each new circumstance, you have to see events through your own eyes. Too much respect for other people's wisdom will make you underrate your own. Ultimately, it's up to you to measure each new situation. You must make the time and effort to examine and re-examine your ideas and opinions. You can't afford to let someone else do this thinking for you. Finally, try to have some cynical distance from your own self-opinion. Stay open to the idea you are not exactly the person you believe you are. Be aware that your self-image determines much of your thinking and your values, and your self-opinion is idealized. It's not a completely accurate picture of who you are. In general, we overestimate how smart, decent, and independent we are. We all tend to be self-absorbed, obsessed with our own goals, pursuits, and ideas. And we are not always fountains of goodwill towards others. We are not as independent and autonomous as we imagine. Without our awareness, the choices we make are manipulated by the media, advertisers, and the groups we belong to. Understanding the illusions of your self-opinion. Stop seeking the validation of other people. Instead, work on making yourself truly independent and honestly concerned with the welfare of others. The idea is to remain open-minded and be humble and realistic about the limits of our thinking process. In the end, our objective is to put off rigid thinking patterns and stubbornness, to instead be formless like water, flexible in our thinking, and then able to quickly adapt to changing circumstances.